fans, do you want to win your share of $100,000? Simply enter the houseofboxing.com Fight Night Prediction Challenge. Compete with boxing fans around the world. Simply head over to houseofboxing.com and sign up now.
This is Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social in association with houseofboxing.com and Empire Fight Store. I'm here. Quite a scenic background actually. We have the Ferris wheel going on behind us. Mr. Roberto Diaz, always a pleasure, my friend. I have you on UK shores rather than me being in Mexico, Vegas, LA or wherever. Lovely to see you. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Charlie. So good to see you. It's been great. I'm excited. We're having fun. We're back in the UK after so many years, and it's been great. Seeing a lot of old friends, old faces. We're just enjoying soaking up the moment.
I suppose just firstly on old friends and old faces, Will Crawler is on the card, and I said to him, it must be a really surreal moment. Obviously, you were there, not as a boxer, with your brother when he fought Linares, to now be fighting on his undercard is a very full circle experience. Must be quite nice to sort of be able to share the same environment with the Crawler family again.
Absolutely. They've always been friends, even before the fight with Jorge. I've had a long relationship with Anthony and his team. And now during the two fights, very good fights, very historic fights, there's a great bond between the Crawlers and Jorge, and of course with us as well.
Let's talk about Jorge this weekend. Up at 140 pounds, takes on Jack Catterall. Jack, we sort of know, was on the harsh end of a decision against Josh Taylor, then had a lot of time out the ring. Last time out fought Dara Foley. Quite a convincing points win, put him down a couple of times. Is this the sort of last roll of the dice for Jorge Linares?
Absolutely. Look, it's funny how things work out. To me, personally, and to the team, Jack should be the undefeated world champion today. However, if he would be the undefeated world champion that he should be, Jorge wouldn't be fighting him because he'd have other fights there lined up for him. Boxing's about opportunities. It comes at the right time. It comes at a perfect opportunity for us. Jorge has been there before. And what I mean by that, Jorge lost back-to-back a few years ago. He was written off. It was done, over. He should retire. And then he came back with tremendous victories, unifying, winning world titles. He's counted out right now, rightfully so. In boxing at his age, 3 losses in a row, it should be done. It should be over with. But because he's been there, done that before, and risen and gotten up and conquered, he knows he can do it again. And right now, the Jorge, I've known him for many years, Charlie, and believe me when I say this, it's not to promote the fight. It's the real Jorge. This is the Jorge that has come back and beaten certain fighters that he wasn't supposed to be. This is the Jorge that I know is unstoppable. So come Saturday night, the pressure's off. The pressure's on Jack. He's at home. He's expected to deliver. He's expected to win. He probably has that extra pressure. Not only do I win, I have to make a statement and knock him out. And Jorge doesn't have that. I mean, I believe it's like 10-1 odds. So there's no pressure on him. He's fighting for the right reasons. He's fighting for himself today. He's not fighting for money. He's not fighting for a world title. He's not fighting to prove to somebody. He's fighting for himself. And that's when a fighter is most dangerous, especially Jorge.
Well, that's something I just wanted to pick up on. I got a notification just there from someone I was speaking to about the fight. He's back with Ismael Salas. He said in the press conference he wanted to revert back to his old ways. He really is seeing it as a last chance saloon. The training team, everything's that he's put in place, reminiscent of the times where he had all that success in his career. That's sort of the sort of thing you want to hear from a fighter, right? That's that fighting talk. That's that fighting mentality. Don't change what works, right? And he's back to what works.
Absolutely. A fighter like Jorge, you have to go through the downs to understand you have to go down, you have to be at your lowest moment and learn from experience. That's what's going to separate Saturday night. Jack hasn't had these bad experiences. Outside of a very bad decision, he hasn't been through really the fire and hasn't been in the hole and hasn't been on the floor and having to get up. Jorge went back to the basic, went back to what worked, and is surrounded by all positive energy. and that we're going to see on Saturday night. I truly believe it's going to be art. It's going to be art. It's going to be beautiful to watch.
Well, you're talking it to me, and you're certainly selling it to me just off that alone. I suppose, just quickly before we talk on the world of boxing as a whole and what you're now onto ventures-wise and what you've got coming up, what you've had. England is a time where you've had many memories. You're back here in Liverpool. We were just having a natter off camera. You're saying you're really enjoying your time in Liverpool. Happy to be back?
Absolutely. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to see friends that I haven't seen in a long time. Matthew Hatton, Little Campbell. What I remember, Little Campbell was probably 10 years old, and to see him on the bill and see how successful and how good he's doing. Mark Robinson. I mean, to see all these old faces and friends. I saw Krolas today. I mean, and there's respect and love. I saw the Smiths. I can't wait to see Liam and Callum maybe on the weekend. So it's been great. It's been fun to see, even though you don't see each other often or text or talk often, these are true friends for life, that boxing family that it's been 10 years I haven't seen them, but when you see each other, it's like yesterday. I saw Jamie Moore today. I mean, so many old faces, and I'm excited to see Ricky on the weekend. So it's good to be back.
Well, that it is, and it's good to have you here. In sort of on the US side of stuff, it was reported that Showtime were leaving boxing. Now, I suppose there's so many reasons that we can go into as and why this is happening. A lot of stuff's going digital now, but I think also the truth is maybe boxing not pulling in the viewership at times that we need it to as a sport. Maybe now looks like it will go to an app, whether that be Amazon Prime or DAZN or something like that. But as of a whole, Showtime leaving boxing, what do you make of it?
It's sad. It's sad. It happened a few years ago when HBO left. I mean, you had the two titans of boxing, HBO and Showtime, that a lot of us grew up with as young kids, watching so many great history fights. There's always hope that they're walking away from boxing now, but hope that they someday come back. But like the saying goes, when one door closes, another one opens. And I think it's not so much that we're losing viewership. I think we have so many different outlets now that have boxing that you're separating it. So in an ideal world, I would love to see the PBC joining a DAZN, and imagine under that same umbrella 3 promoters, where now there's no more politics of across the street, and now the fans and the fighters and boxing in general can witness some of the greatest fights because they're all under the same umbrella. That would be great for boxing.
In a weird way, you say it could be great for boxing. If that was to happen and they were to end up with a DAZN or something like that, we know that it would sort of force promoters to have to work with each other a little bit more. Could end up being a really good thing.
Absolutely. Look, when I was with my former employee at Golden Boy, I always said, and I had mentioned it to Eddie, and I had mentioned it to DAZN, and I had mentioned it to my side, was once a year, it would be great to put, for instance, the best of each promoters at the end of the year, a card, like a Super Bowl, like a World Cup, like the World Series. And that's great for boxing. And you can't be with ego of, what if they win this fight? And you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But who's keeping track? Who's keeping score? At the end of the day, it's good business. Imagine 3 or 4 promoters under the same umbrella, and they're basically forced to say, okay, it's this card. Both promoters got this date, but you guys have to match each other's fight, like your fighters against their fighters. You know how exciting that would be, and how fun and how competitive? And again, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But that's the fun of the sport, that you don't win every single one.
Let's talk a little bit about Canelo. Last time out, Charlo moved up 2 weight division. As we've seen in history, doesn't always work. Certainly didn't work this time. It was a bit of a strange game plan all around from Charlo. What did you make of it? The fight, a bit underwhelming?
Well, I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, you see the result. And yes, it wasn't the fight, but at the end of the day, you need 2 to dance. You need 2 to tango. And I saw on one side, I do believe Charlo went in there to win. I do believe, I've known Charlo for many years. I did a lot of his fights. But one thing is to train and prepare to win, and one thing is once you step into that ring, And I think it happens with a lot of Canelo opponents where they think he's slow, they think he's small, they think many things, but once they're in that ring and they feel the power and they see he's not as slow as people think, or people say he's flat-footed or quicksand. Come on, once you step in that ring, he can cut that ring off very quickly, and you have him on top of you, and you feel those power shots. You realize he is a lot faster than he looks. So the plan, the strategy goes out the window, and there comes a point where, do I engage and try or get knocked out? Or maybe you start thinking, okay, let me work on it, and rounds go by quick, and next thing you know, it's over. But it takes two to tango. I think Canelo, in what I saw, showed that camp was different, showed that the conditioning was different, didn't sit down, didn't get as tired, enjoyed the fight. Obviously, he would have enjoyed it more if there's an engagement, because if he engages, there's a chance he gives the fans what they want, the knockout. But Charlo didn't stand there to trade. Was it smart? I think so. He walks out and says, hey, I tried. I finished with fight on my feet, and now goes back to 54 if he could make that weight.
Robert, just sort of on Canelo then, the name David Benavidez is one that's always thrown about, but I don't know what it is, and maybe you'll be able to educate me a little bit more as a fan of foremost, and I'm sure the people will be interested to listen as well. With David Benavidez, he's been throwing Canelo's name around for a long, long time, and it always feels like Canelo's saying, look, you've got to deserve it, you've got to earn it. He's now fighting Andrade, in which I would say is quite a good fight, last time out with Caleb Plant. Is it, on the US side of stuff, is that a fight that people want to see? Do you feel like he now deserves that shot, David Benavidez?
Look, I don't blame David for wanting to fight Canelo for many years. It's like everybody else. Everybody wants to fight Canelo because they know that that's the biggest payday. They know that's the biggest fight in boxing for them in those divisions. So on David's part, of course he wants to fight Canelo. And does he deserve it? You can't go to a Super Bowl, you can't go to the World Series if you don't win the playoff, right? I think this is the playoff. Okay. If he beats a Demetrius Andrade, who's a very difficult style, yes, the winner of this fight does deserve that Super Bowl, that World Series, that big payday. The winner. Because now you have two undefeated fighters that not too many are lining up to fight. Now the winner deserves it. Now, as much as I think David has that advantage because he's the bigger, stronger guy, it's not going to be easy. And people are going to realize after the fight, a lot of those people that say, oh, David can beat Canelo, are going to start, oh, no, you know what? I think Canelo can beat David because he's looked very good. He's very strong. He is very well-conditioned. But he's had some very good opponents in front of him that are not movers. Caleb was one that was a mover coming off a loss, though, or he had beaten Darrell. But I think Demetrius is going to give him something he hasn't seen yet, and that will show where he needs to prepare and get better. But it's going to help him. It's not a gimme fight. I favor David. I think David, yes, is physically stronger, bigger. Of course, we know that. But bigger is not always better. Demetrius will show, because he does move. He is awkward. He's a good boxer. And he'll show some of those points that can be exploited.
Just finally from me, I could pick your brains forever, and I'm sure tomorrow I will do just that. Next week, an interesting spectacle. Tyson Fury takes on Francis Ngannou in a bit of a crossover. Who knows what you want to call it? Look, I think first things, facts out there. There's a lot of money in the Middle East, right? The Saudis are willing to pay. And it is a spectacle. We saw this weekend with KSI versus... God, the name just escaped me. No, Logan fought Dylan and KSI fought... Who did KSI? Tommy Fury. Oh, my God, I don't know why my mind went blank there. But people pay for this sort of thing. But from the pad footage we've seen of Francis Ngannou, it doesn't look very convincing. We expect Tyson Fury to go in and just sort of do whatever really with him, and then the Alexander Usyk fight. Is it something that still interests you?
With all due respect, and to each their own, those who pay and buy, I hope they're not disappointed. I don't like that. If Tyson was retired and not the heavyweight world champion and went on this tour of exhibitions, good for him. As the heavyweight world champion, it's been done before. I mean, Muhammad Ali fought a Karate Kid guy, back in the 70s. I don't like it. However, I like the fact that the Usyk fight is done and signed, and that's a real fight. So if this prepares him in camp and it's an exhibition where he can get paid loads of money, great for him. But let's get the Usyk fight done. As long as that's the prize at the end, I'm all for it.
Roberto, always lovely to see you. I'm going to we do a little prediction series on here, and hey, that's the fight next week. If I had to push you for a prediction, it sounds mad. Tyson Fury, Francis Ngannou, what would you say?
Tyson Fury by knockout. The boxer's always going to beat that MMA guy if it's in the ring. If that's an MMA guy, well, of course, a different result.
Roberto Diaz, as always, thank you for speaking to us at Boxing Social.